Good morning, fellow Autobots, Decepticons, trans fans, Legonians, and Brick fans. This is Dave Frost reporting in once again with the final conclusion review video of the 1 week of destruction. And this is Devastator. So what we're going to do is, first of all, I want to remove the platform, the rotating platform, and put all the figures on the desk. Just so we have room to work with when creating Devastator. So now that thing's out of the way and we can get on with it. So first what we need to do is transform Scrapper and Mixmaster into their combination mode, as we're going to transform everyone else into combination mode as well. So tuck in the head. And obviously, you would want Scrapper and Long Haul in robot mode, and everybody else in vehicle mode. So anyhow, next take the arms, rotate the hands out, and rotate the lower arms towards so the fists are facing the back, and bring in the shoulder, the hinges between the arms and the body. Come around to the back, extend out the scoop. And there's a hinge right here that's going into that tab. Or, I mean, there's a tab right there going into that tab hole. And then flip him over. Bring down the front of the lower leg parts. And then slide this tab right there into the slot right there. And then bring down the back half of the lower legs. Now Scrapper is done. And like I've said before, I'm just going to leave the Decepticon logo cab section in this position. I understand that it's supposed to be the other way. That it's supposed to be upside down, but I'd rather have it facing that direction. Next, bring in Mixmaster. So what you want to do is take the back area and put it out like that, and then bring out the heel spur. Just like that. Disconnect the tab. Pull the arms off of the tabs that they're connected to. And rotate them towards the back. Then unhitch the cab from the mixing drum. So come back here. Separate the cab halves. And take the feet and put them inward so that you can bring out the cab front pieces and leave those pieces down like that. Then put the feet back in normal position and peg and tab the two halves back together. And then put the rest of the cab section back into the mixing drum. There you have the legs. Next, we want to grab long haul. Tuck in the head. Untab the arms, or disconnect the arms. And then take the front, the chest, and bring it up. And then disconnect and separate this giant piece and swing all that upward. Then bring the hands and the lower arms, and they're going to tab into a tab that is right there, as there is a tab hole right there. So you do that for both sides. Next, take the lower half of the body, most likely the waist and the legs, and turn it all the way around. Actually, I do believe you're supposed to leave the chest and the backpack section hinged like this, as per normal of robot mode. And yes, I remember that we are to leave the upper arms hinged into the chest. Come down to the legs. Turn them outward so you can fold the feet back in, and then turn the legs back into the inward position, or to the normal position, that is. Then you have these two sections right here, and you're going to rotate them all the way down. And there you have long haul. Now we're going to get to hook. So you lift up the crane, bring down the robot mode lower arms and hand sections to where they go below the back tire, the front of the back tires. Kind of hard to explain, but you get the picture. Then take the front and back sections of the vehicle, and there's a tab right here, as well as two tab holes on that side, and then on this side there's two tabs and that clip around this tab. Come around to this side, lift up the cab, rotate out this connector peg, which will be used later. Take this connector peg, swing it down. Come to this side, and it's very stiff, but you rotate out this connector peg. Then you come to the robot mode chest and rotate out that connector peg. And I do believe the arms are supposed to be out like this. For This one has a tab right here. There you go. There's a tab right there on this arm, but unfortunately this arm doesn't really have a purpose, so just leave it under the front section of the back tires. Now we're done with Hook. Bring in Scavenger. And you're going to have them like this. So you want to bring the shovel bucket and fold it up. Then disconnect the treads from the central chest portion and rotate that chest portion all the way down. Unfortunately, at this point, the treads have nowhere to connect to. But then you want to take the chest and have the chest facing towards the back, as Scavenger is going to go on like this. Excuse me. Then bring in Bone Crusher. Same thing for him. You untab the treads from the center piece, and like Scavenger as well, he unfortunately does not have anything to peg. Bone Crusher does not have anything in the back of the vehicle for the treads to connect to. Then just fold over the front bulldozer scoop over the front of the vehicle. And then rotate 180 degrees this back piece. So now we're going to start with the legs and long haul. So we have this thing going on where we have these tabs here and right here. One other thing that I forgot about long haul is that you take the back panels and rotate them out to the side. Then there's these slots here and here that these slide pegs are going to slide into. But first you gotta make sure that everything is connected and correctly placed. And you have to make sure that the slide tabs are all the way in that slot. Then you come to the back. And this is why you have scrapper's feet like this, because they swing up and go into this area up here. And they peg into or tab into tab holes up there. Same for Mixmaster. Where you slide in the slide tabs and then bring in the front of the cab section into the back of into these areas. And now we have the lower half of the body and the legs connected. Now, I will be raising up the camera a little bit to make this work. Alright, so I've raised up the camera quite a bit because Devastator does get tall. As you've seen in the haul video I made last week. Literally a week ago from today. So now we bring in Hook. And here's when it gets interesting. Because these tabs go into this and that. And then there are tabs in the arms of long haul, so they go into their own little areas as well. So there we have Hook in place. Come around to the right side, and we're going to do Scavenger. So this entire assembly, that big peg thing, goes into this part of Scavenger. And that goes on there quite nicely. Then come underneath, and there's this tab here. There's a tab right there at Long Haul's arm that goes into that slot. But yet again, there's nothing to tab in the front. This tread. Sorry for all these advertisement interruptions. At least I'm able to skip all of them, so that we can continue on with this mega review. Then you do the same for Bone Crusher. But for some reason, it's been rather difficult getting that peg to go into Bone Crusher. There we go, that worked. And like I said, the same thing goes on this side, where there's a tab right there going into that slot. So there we go. Now we just add on the attachments. So you notice that there's two tab holes here and here on Scavenger and Bone Crusher. That is where we bring in the chest shield. So I'll figure this thing out. But I'd rather come back in a moment. So bear with me as I figure this thing out. So let's get back to attempting to get this chest shield on. So there's a couple of tabs right here and over down here. Over here. So let's attempt to get this thing in. Also, there are a couple of tabs right here and right here that slot onto this part of long haul. There we go. We have the chest shield in place. Now let's go to Scavenger. As we bring in a couple of missile pods, turn them inside out, they become the hands. Rotate the fist, open it up if you desire to. And there's a peg right here at the tip of my finger if I understand you can't see it. But it is there. That'll go into that hole. Moving Devastator back, we bring in his big gun that will go into the hand that is Scavenger. And he holds it quite well. Coming around to Bone Crusher, we do the same thing. Bring in the other missile pod, flip out the hand, open the fingers, which is all one piece. They don't individually move on their own, but that's where the upgrade kit comes in, so we'll look at that in a little bit. Finding that hole for the peg to go into. Oh, I am so sorry. I have this thing on backwards. It is supposed to be this big hole that it goes into because the other hole is way too small. That little thing right there at the tip of my thumb. That was a mistake on my part. So we have all the pieces on, and now we just flip out the head, and there is Devastator. Prepare for extermination. That's my attempt of what Devastator says in the cartoon movie that came out in 1986. So he's a pretty outstanding, awesome figure outside of a bunch of different flaws that each character has, but it's not really that big of a deal because most people who get Devastator would want him to stay in combination mode and not have him in bits and pieces of the separate robots. But now let's bring in some combiner characters. So first off, I have here with me Bruticus from Fall of Cybertron. And he is a combiner made up of 5 different deluxe class scale characters. There is an upgrade kit of Onslaught being a Voyager scale character, so the Bruticus character would be more accurate to the game. And I will figure out how the heck to get that upgrade kit. So up next, we are going to move on to our next combiner character, Defensor. And you can already see off the bat that these two combiner characters come up to the waist of Devastator. Next, we have Superion. Who scales at the same level as Defensor, and obviously Bruticus, but thing is that Silverbolt, the torso of Superion, and Hotspot, the torso of Defensor, they're Voyager scale. But you see Onslaught, who is the torso of Bruticus, he's deluxe, but he still scales up the combiner character the same height as Superion and Defensor. So I moved Superion back there because now we can bring in the combination form of the build team of Wedge, Grimlock, Heavy Load, and Hightower. And they form Landfill. This is I understand that they're smaller than the average deluxe class figure, I believe. So Landfill is like the shortest combiner that I have for comparison at the moment. So let's do a group shot of all the combiners. And there you go. There's Landfill, Defensor, Bruticus, Superion, and Devastator. And Landfill is like the enemy of Devastator. So Devastator is like the nemesis, the arch enemy of Landfill, because they're both construction vehicle teams. And you know, I don't care about the size, I just care that they can go head to head. In my Transformer universe, that is. So now let's bring in Onslaught, who I'm pretty sure would just come up to the knee section, if not a little higher than up to the knee section, if not a little higher, of Devastator. Then there is Scoop. Well, it's too much of a comparison in scale, so let's just remove all the combiners. So bear with me for a moment as I'm removing the combiners. Okay, so now we can bring back in Onslaught, who is actually a little higher than Devastator's knee section. Knee level. And then there's Scoop, who is a little shorter than Devastator's knee section. And then there's one other, who we've already compared to each individual Constructicon before. Who is the Legend class figure, Little Shockwave. And that's how high he goes up. Like midway up the lower leg of Devastator. So that's quite interesting. But that's all I have for the combiner team and individual robot comparisons. So